Sound first. Radio rasp. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer calling TIC over the net as fire breaks the platoon apart and Lieutenant Jack Rourke is pulled toward the trees. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes packs men tight behind ice-slick rock. A PKM on a rattling truck scrapes the slope and sparks through snow, while HM-1 Sofia Alvarez works a bleeding shape in the open. In the rear support vehicle, IS-2 Avery Reed listens on an AN, PRC 152A. Her thumb hovers on the PTT, and fog collects inside her balaclava. She almost keys up, then stops. Her palm stings with cold as she reaches for a hard case that has stayed shut for months. Mercer confirms no air. ISR captured before the storm was waved off for icing, and the MH-60S sits on weather hold outside the ring. The valley belongs to itself. When weather guts every plan, the only guide left is your pulse. In the support vehicle, under red cabin light, IS-2 Avery Reed hears the net quiver over Skallen Fjord. Chief Logan Barrett's stay in the truck drifts back as the platoon fights through a whiteout. She sees her father, retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Reed, a scout sniper who taught patience, reading wind, and the strength of silence over bragging. The lesson was never glory. It was choosing when not to be seen. She chose the Navy intelligence specialist path to keep distance from triggers, believing a desk could carry the weight. ISR was waved off earlier for icing. There is no desk tonight. Her breath fogs the glass. A glove seam scratches, and she almost taps the mic, then lets the urge pass. Her hand grazes the closed, hard case. It feels heavier than plastic. A name can be heavy because of tradition, but the real weight is how you answer it when the dark closes in. She settles her back against the seat, steadies her breathing, and decides the rear channel is not where she ends this night. The net buzzes with Mercer steadying traffic and Hayes keeping the platoon stitched together, while IS-2 Avery Reed slips from the rear vehicle and eases a hard case into the snow shadow. Frost powders the latch, and her glove skids once before it bites. She opens the lid to the gear she has avoided for months. AMK-22 Mod 0 Barrett MRAD in 300 Norma Magnum with a Nightforce ATAR 7 to 35 and a suppressor waiting beside foam. She moves toward a basalt outcrop on the east side, taking a side slope path that hides her shape and smears her tracks as gusts drift powder across them. Her breath catches inside fabric, and a knee twinge reminds her she is not perfect. Radio chatter rides the wind. Mercer calm. Hayes concise. No instructions she needs. Only proof that people she knows are still fighting. She settles behind rock and snow and lets the ridge fill her ears. This is not a shrine. It is a job she will own. Tools are not miracles. The person who accepts the burden decides what they mean. Wind scrapes the ridge and pecks the glass as IS-2 Avery Reed settles into an unseen cut of snow along the eastern basalt. 800 to 900 meters from the frayed line where the platoon fights to hold. The whiteout lifts and collapses in bands, hiding and revealing shapes in the same breath. Her cheek is cold where fabric rides up, and she tucks it down with a knuckle that feels slower than it should. On the net, Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer steadies the cadence and calls the situation clean. Troops in contact. No air on station. Push west with smoke on my mark. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes moves elements like a quiet metronome. The PKM has gone silent for now, but the tree line hisses with smaller fire and with the kind of confidence that comes from thinking a prize is in hand. Through the blown veil, Avery finds Lieutenant Jack Rourke hustled by escorts, one muzzle pressed too near to be a threat for long. She lets the breath settle and chooses timing rather than volume. The report that follows is softened, not silent. And then, Confusion opens like a door no one noticed before. A second shape folds. The escort at Rourke's elbow stumbles. The last one drops his grip and looks the wrong way. The platoon edges forward into space that did not exist a second earlier. Who is on glass rides across the net in Hayes's voice? Mercer cuts it before names take root and files the presence under unknown overwatch in play. Move your element. Keep the push. Avery stays dark and shifts a handspan to break pattern. A heel cramps and she almost winces. Then forgets it. Wind arrows change and she adjusts her view so the ridge does not repeat her. A new pair tries to drift in from the west. Crouched and patient, hoping the team will show a back. They do not get to measure that hope for long. The ridge goes quiet again and the platoon closes more ground. She does not claim anything on the net. She does not want credit to slow the tempo that is working. Credibility arrives last. In a night like this, staying alive comes from choices that do not need a signature. The storm breathes, and she breathes with it. Only eyes and decisions, while the names belong to other people who need the room she keeps finding. The sky opens for a minute and the tree line spits a truck into the bowl. The PKM barks hard and flat, tearing at the slope and tossing ice into sheets. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes snaps the element tight behind a tooth of rock. Bodies tucked and waiting for any slack. H. Muno Sofia Alvarez is on a knee over a pale face. Sleeves wet and gritty. Trying to buy a little more time while Tracer skips close enough to taste. The gunner crouches behind a welded steel shield, and the angle is all wrong for the team. Bursts, rake low, and then climb. Chewing bark. Rattling helmets. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer keeps the net clean and short. No air. Hold picture. The whiteout breathes and returns and the truck bucks through ruts until the mount chatters on its post. From the eastern ridge, IS-2, Avery Reed watches the shield. She does not chase noise. She watches the bounce. The tiny lift when the tire hits a frozen groove. The frame flex that shows a brief sliver where metal should kiss metal. Her glove itches under the cuff and she almost rushes it. Then, steadies. The sound that follows is softened, not quiet. Swallowed by wind and distance. The shield stutters and the barking stops mid-word. The truck sways and kisses a dark trunk. Snow shakes from the branches and the cab slumps crooked. Hayes does not shout triumph. He drives the push, shifting bodies through the opening like he has been holding this door for minutes. Alvarez drags her patient behind a heavier stone, and her breath finally leaks out in a fog that stings her lip. The net thins to a single order, and feet start to move, where they had been nailed to the ground. Sometimes the press is just returning quiet, so your people can move their feet. No one says a name for what helped. They only feel the air ease and the space widen enough to matter. Silence after the truck feels thin. Then Senior Chief Daniel Hayes pushes the platoon to bound and reset security. Gloves fanning hand signals that flash in snow glare while Chief Logan Barrett mutters about chasing a ghost no one can pin down. The air bites across helmets. A casualty sled rattles over crusted ice, and for a second a strap slips, then catches. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer keeps the radio picture tight, calls overwatch in play, and refocus on recovering Lieutenant Jack Rourke. No drift into stories. Movement and spacing. From the eastern ridge, IS-2, Avery Reed stays off the net and watches the west flank where two shapes angle for a back door. She takes them before they can see the team and then shifts a body's width to keep the angle fresh. Heel, barking a protest that fades as wind scrapes the rock. She does not wait for thanks. Hayes rolls the elements by pair. Set security east. Check your 6. And the line begins to feel like a line again. Rourke is hauled upright by his element, knees wobbling once before he finds his feet. He looks toward the ridge and finds nothing but snow and a shadow that might be a bush. Barrett's doubt lingers. But the silence keeps buying them space. And space is the only argument that matters. In a fight, resumes do not save people. Results do. The line bends toward a pocket of trees where the snow breaks just enough to pretend it cover. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer passes the word that an MH-60S can commit for a 60-second window if the zone reads green. AW2 Mila Grant is already thinking wires and wind while the aircraft waits outside the ring. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes trims the formation. Set security on my mark. Keep the lane clean. And the platoon leans into the contour that leads to the sheltered HLZ. Lieutenant Jack Rourke moves with his element. Steps short. Breath rough but steady. On the eastern ridge, IS-2 Avery Reed stays a shadow and tracks the white. Two attackers ride ski out of a frozen gully with compact rifles carried tight. One fires wide and loud to bait the patrol's shape. A pop meant to pull bodies into the wrong arc. The other angles higher on the slope where backs might be shown. Wind licks the rock and the glass stings her cheek where the fabric has slipped. She nudges it down and makes herself wait for the right beat. Hayes corrals the element before the bait takes. Chief Logan Barrett starts to swing too far and nearly opens his side. He catches himself late and swears under his breath. Then Avery breaks the ruse. The noisy decoy goes first. The quiet mover above him follows. The line holds its curve toward the trees and the HLZ. Barrett breathes hard and admits on open net that whoever is out there should keep doing that. Mercer repeats the commit window. If the HLZ goes red, the bird stays out. The ridge wind stiffens and the unspoken countdown starts to move in everyone's heads. Rourke glances toward the ridge and then back to his lane. A strap on the casualty sled slips and a glove fumbles before it clicks home again. Trust begins to edge in where pride had been standing. The team rides the contour. Not speech. Not credit. Just a path that stays open long enough to matter. When a clock starts on your rescue, pride steps aside so the work can happen. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes splits the platoon for movement. One element bending toward the trees while a sweeper peels off to cut any tail along the north rim of the HLZ. IS-2 Avery Reed shifts her scan deeper than the obvious. North approach. Fence lines and roof lines that could catch wind breaks. The net sounds controlled but thin. Frost stings where her cheek seal slipped and she tugs it back with a knuckle that will not warm. A muted snap slaps near the element. An opposition sniper has taken a roofline on an old wooden storehouse. Patient enough to wait for the gust to settle before trying again. Avery watches the cadence of his pauses and how he counts to a rhythm the valley keeps. She ends the threat and lets the sound fold into weather. Hayes marks sniper cold on the net and the file keeps moving. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer receives a slow-loading thermal clip recorded before the storm. The frame buffers. Jumps. Then settles on a single shape set on the eastern ridge hours earlier. Angle and timing tell their own story. Overwatch had been there even when drones were forced to wave off for icing. The room inside his headset goes quiet in the useful way. Lieutenant Jack Rourke catches a glimpse of the pause thermal when it pushes to his screen. He asks if that shape is their guardian. Voice low enough to be swallowed by the next call. No one answers. Hayes keeps the split. Sweeper clears the rear arc. The main element slides toward trees that look less like cover and more like a plan. Avery keeps scanning deep, not chasing celebration. Catching a pair that tries to shadow the file along a shallow ditch and letting the HLZ breathe for one more minute. Somewhere above clouds. Red cockpit, wash paints, faces that are waiting on green. A secret does not need a spotlight. It only has to show up at the right time to bring someone home. They do not trade names. They trade distance gained. and the idea of an unseen protector turns from rumor into a silhouette they can almost point to without saying anything at all. LT Paige Whitaker rides the weather edge and calls green for a 60-second commit while holding just outside the curtain. AW 2 Mila, Grant watches for wires, skims, wind readouts, and keeps a hand near the cabin controls as Senior Chief Daniel Hayes marks a low signature IR on the snow and tightens the perimeter. The HLZ looks like a cleared breath inside the trees. Small and stubborn, the net is clipped and calm because it has to be. Mercer repeats the clock and then leaves silence for people to work. Wind eases for a breath. Movement stirs along the tree line. 3 figures probe the edge as if testing a fence. One breaks and comes hard toward Lieutenant Jack Rourke, hungry to reclaim what was never theirs. IS 2 Avery Reed does not wait for a debate about names. She cuts the push, leaves a lane, and says nothing on the net. Space appears where there was only pressure a second before. Rourke stumbles, then steadies as a sleeve pulls him forward. The Seahawk flares into the timbered lip. Rotor wash carving rings in the powder. Grant calls, clear, right. Rope ready. Voice steady with that careful urgency that keeps people honest. Hayes funnels the wounded and Rourke to the bird, counting shapes rather than syllables. Chief Logan Barrett and the sweeper element hold the rear so low their pads print on the crust like a line of black commas. A glove slips on a cold buckle and a breath hisses out. Then the strap bites and work resumes. At the rock line, a man steps from shadow. Ilya Vostrikov carries an old rifle the way some men carry a story. He waits on wind, breaks, and lifts the barrel when the valley falls quiet. Avery recognizes the rhythm he keeps. She has seen that kind of patience before. The habit of measuring quiet instead of noise. She meets him on timing, not volume. And the distance between them turns into a question with only 2 answers. Rotor wash changes the ridge's breath. The trees bow and the powder lifts. Vostrikov moves first. Avery chooses a different pause. 1 beat earlier than comfort. And the standoff ends without announcement. Mercer's voice cuts in with last man. Hayes confirms and the aircraft pulls away. Cold air pouring through the open door while the zone empties. A face in the cabin turns to look back and then faces forward because there is still work to do. Some winds have no witnesses. They belong to the few who pick the right breath. IR blinks low against snow until someone palms it dark. The wind returns with its usual temper. No one says a name. The proof that matters is the line of footprints fading toward the ridge and the thump of the Seahawk sliding back into weather, lifting the night with it. The harborside debrief room holds its chill like a habit. Condensation ticks along the window frame while a coffee cup steams on a metal table. Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer asks who provided overwatch. Voice level enough to pass for routine. Senior Chief Daniel Hayes answers unknown and then says the important part, that lives were saved. The words sit there and do not need polish. A pre-storm thermal clip crawls onto the screen, buffering twice before freezing on a single silhouette posted on the eastern ridge. Lieutenant Jack Rourke studies the frame and says he believes that shape is their guardian. Careful not to turn belief into a name, the room accepts the idea without chasing it. IS-2 Avery Reed steps in, still dusted with snow. A glove squeaks against the door handle, and she almost apologizes for the noise. Then lets it go. Chief Logan Barrett, short on breath and pride, offers a plain, thank you, if it was her. She does not claim and does not deny. HM1 Sofia Alvarez peels a strip of medical tape from her knuckles and watches the steam drift from the cup. Mercer notes, the log will carry 16 EKIA assessed, pending BDA. Any award recommendations will take time, and the weather that chased ISR will not be blamed for the paperwork. The conversation thins to details and timestamps. Shoulders ease a fraction. When the room finally thaws, a nod says more than a speech. They file out one by one, boots leaving damp crescents that fade as the heater finally catches up. No one is lighter, but everyone is steadier. After the harborside debrief, Lieutenant Commander Noah Mercer reminds her awards take time and invites IS-2 Avery Reed to begin prep for BUD-S or deepen her intel Overwatch lane. In the corridor, Lieutenant Jack Rourke passes and offers a plain truth that she saved people, not just rank. Outside, wind softens. The Navy flag tugs. Avery shoulders the closed case and chooses steadiness over spotlight. Storms will come again. What sets you apart is the breath you trained inside them. Footprints start to fill as she turns back to work.